So the story behind this car, this is a one-owner car. The person that owned this car in 2007 bought it and parked it. It doesn't look like anybody has sat inside other than the driver's seat. When you open the trunk, the only thing I think that's ever been in the trunk is the Cobra car cover, which has been covering this perfect paint. The vehicle is as close to coming off the factory as you can imagine. Even in the back of the car, inside the wheel wells, where you have the orange paint and the black sort of undercoating they use at the factory, you can see where it is being sprayed in. This car has really not been driven in 13 years. Now, a lot of you know about the movie that came out in the last year, Ford versus Ferrari. It features Carroll Shelby taking on Ferrari and winning at Le Mans. But Carroll Shelby went on to make a lot of special cars for the Ford Motor Company in the 60s and early 70s. They take a big break in there, and then they came back in the 2000s, and this was the very first GT500 that had the Shelby name on it. But they got back together with Carroll Shelby. They brought the Shelby name back. They brought back this car in 2007. So of all the GT500s of this era, there are only 282 that were ever made with this color configuration. So under the hood is a double overhead cam 32 valve supercharged V8. You might know the regular Mustang GT had what was called a modular V8 at 4.6 liters. Well, basically that engine up to 5.4 liters, and it has 500 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 480 pound-feet of torque. You see the big supercharger on top of the engine there spinning freely. And the great thing about these SVT engines is that each one is signed by the person that assembled the engine. The suspension is modified. You get a reverse L. McPherson strut. You get 34mm stabilizer bars, coil springs. In the back, you get the famous 3-link solid axle with coil springs and a 24mm solid stabilizer bar. Up front, you get the larger Brembo disc brakes. They're 4 pistons at 14 inches at the front and 11.8 at the back. As I mentioned, for this run of the GT500, there was just over 8,000 of these coupes made. 282 of them were orange. I guarantee you there are none on the planet that are as close to mint or as fresh off the line as you're going to find this car. So this car is in Canada. It can be sent to the United States. Of course, it's a North American product, so it can roll back across the border, no problem if someone in the States wants to buy the car and take it to the US. Some collector's going to get a beautiful car. So let's get inside. I'll show you around the interior, and we'll take it out for just a few miles. Not many. We don't want to crack that 500-mile mark. So the guy who originally bought this car obviously had an eye towards collectability, because this car was purchased and parked. Only 500 miles in 13 years. And when he bought this car, he collected every single shred of information, documentation, tags, stickers, you name it. Everything comes with this car. In fact, he has the original notes at the dealer from the salesperson, all of the basic information about the car from when it was ordered till it was received, every sticker, everything is collected on this car. It's exactly what someone who is collecting a car like this would want. Full documentation from day one. And the inside really is amazing. It's like nobody has sat in this except for the driver's seat. The back seats are absolutely new. Typically, you know, you get in a car like this, of this era especially, because there's more hard plastic and things in this era of Mustang than, say, the new one. And those things really will scratch and show wear after a short period of time. It is as fresh as they come on the inside. This one has the large display audio as well, even has available navigation if you get the DVD for it. The car has had all of its service done. It has all of the recalls done. It just had an oil change. It's basically ready to go. You get the Cobra embossed on the seat backs. A very simple execution of a Mustang. All right, let's start this thing up, see what it sounds like. Not bad. All right, put it in gear, 6-speed manual transmission. Let's get at it. So what you have with this car is basically a 5.4 liter larger displacement version of the 4.6 engine that was available in the GT, and then with a big supercharger bolted on top. And it has great drivability. I gotta tell you, it's been a while since I've driven a car of this era, and of course this one is brand new, but the clutch uptake, the way the engine revs. Just a smooth delivery of power. And a lot of people knock these Mustangs because of the solid axle in the back. But I don't know what Ford did with their crazy voodoo, but over the years they were really able to sort of tame the rear end of these cars and made them really quite drivable. And they're much better than people imagine. And when you get behind the wheel, you realize that actually this car is actually comfortable, and the transmission throws are smooth, the clutch uptake is easy to live with. It doesn't feel like it's beating you up. So this is much different than what I would usually do with a car like this. Someone's gonna buy this car and appreciate it for what it is. So I'm not gonna thrash on it, I'm not gonna beat on it, I'm just gonna tell you what it is. So this car, Road and Track, Car and Driver, all of those big magazines back in the day were capable of getting a run to 60 miles an hour in about 4.5 seconds. So this is a quick car with lots of power. And I think probably the reason why the guy who bought this car originally bought it and tucked it away for 13 years is because he knew that this was the first GT500 with the Shelby name on it in many years, basically since the early 1970s. So Carroll Shelby was back in the picture, Ford Motor Company with a big embrace, putting his name on the back again. And this was the first one after many decades. And I can see why somebody would think that it was pretty neat back then, and it still is today. Someone's going to get a truly collectible GT500. The interior is actually surprisingly nice considering it's 13 years old, and it drives like new. It's just been serviced, it's had an oil change, it's been inspected, all the recalls have been done on the car, it's ready to go. There you go. A time machine, 13 years back. This is what it looked like at Ford.